Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you are new here, you are very welcome too. I share fun and creative videos every week. Today I'll be showing you how to cut and sew a lovely butterfly BUBU gown. So if that sounds like something you would love to learn, just keep on watching. The basic things you'll be needing for this tutorial are your bias. 1 yard of bias will be okay for this tutorial, your sewing thread, your measuring tape, your chalk, this type so it can easily remove from the dress when you are done drafting, okay, your scissors, your ruler, 2.5 yards of organza, and lastly 3 yards of Duchess fabric. Any fabric will be okay for this tutorial. And the basic measurements you need for this tutorial are your waist length, that is from your shoulder to your waist, mine is 17 inches. Your hip point, that is from your waist to your hip, mine is 9 inches. Your full length, that is from your shoulder to where you want your gown to stop, mine is 60 inches. Your bust circumference, that is the round of your bust, mine is 35 inches. Your waist circumference, that is the round of your waist, mine is 30 inches. Your hip circumference, that is the round of your hip, mine is 38 inches. Your back width, that is your shoulder to shoulder measurement, mine is 14 inches. And lastly, your sleeve length, that is where you want your sleeves to stop, mine is 32 inches, and that's how long I want my sleeve to be, okay? And that's basically all on the basic measurements you need for this tutorial. Without wasting much time, let's begin the tutorial properly. First of all, before you start the drafting of your dress, make sure that the width of your fabric, that is the wideness of the fabric, will be enough to accommodate both your back width, that is your shoulder to shoulder measurement, okay, plus your sleeve length times 2 minus 20 for the ruffles of the butterfly. Let me explain. What I mean is that my sleeve length is 32 inches. I will then multiply that by 2, which is now 64 inches altogether, and then plus this figure I got with my back width of 14 inches, that is my shoulder to shoulder measurement, which is now 78 inches in total. And then I will now minus 20 inches, that is 10 inches for one of my sleeve ruffles, and another 10 inches for another sleeve ruffle, that is for the ruffle of the butterfly. So all together is now 58 inches for the wideness of the fabric, okay? And also make sure that the full length of the fabric is enough to accommodate your full length multiplied by 2 minus 20 for the two side. Mine is 60 inches for my length, I'll multiply it by 2, and then minus 20 inches, which is now 100 inches altogether. So the length of my fabric should be 100 inches if I even start drafting it. So I've actually gone ahead to measure all those things I just mentioned and cut them. So I have actually folded my fabric in 2, that is the full length, and I also fold it this way so I can take my body measurements, okay? Please, it should be the right side facing you, and make sure you use this kind of chalk so that you can easily clean it from your dress. You know, it's the right side I'm actually facing, the right side of my fabric. So on the tip of my fabric, that line, I will come down for my armhole depth, and to get that, I will be dividing my bust circumference by 6 and then plus it by 1.5, which is now 7 inches in total, and then add up 3 inches for ease because this is actually a BUBU gown. It needs to be free at the armhole, and then on that point just draw a straight line to the side of the fabric like this, okay? So the next measurement I'll be taking is my waist length, that is from my shoulder to my waist. I'll be placing my tape at the top of my fabric and then to my waist length of 17 inches, and then draw a straight line this way. And then also take my hip point measurement. I'll be placing my measuring tape on the waistline down to my hip point, mine is 9 inches, and then draw a straight line across with my ruler. So the next thing I'll be focusing on is my neck, okay? So because my fabric is folded for both back and front, I'll be taking both the front and the back neck at the same time. So my neck width is 3 inches, but I'll be coming in from the center front of my fabric on the shoulder line by 2.5 inches because I'm actually drafting on the fabric, not on pattern paper, so that my neck won't be wide after I am done sewing the neck. The 0.5 inches will be used for the folding of the neck. So for the back neck depth, I'll be making use of 1.5 inches for it, but I'll be coming down from my shoulder line by 1 inch and then half an inch will be used for the folding of the neck, and then connect the 2 points in a curved line this way with my curve ruler. And that's all for the back neck depth. So the next thing is to measure my front neck depth, and I'll be making use of 6 inches. Is a V neckline, and then place my tape on the shoulder line down to the 6 inches with my tape like this, and then connect the 2 points in a little curving line. I don't want it too straight, that's why I'm actually making it curving, and that's all on the neckline. So the next thing I'll be focusing on is my body measurements. On this armhole line, I'll be taking my bust circumference, my bust measurement, which is my bust divided by 4 is equals to 9 inches, and then add up 2 inches for ease because it's not supposed to be a tight dress. And then on the waistline, I'll be coming in from the center line with my waist circumference divided by 4, which is 7.5 inches, and then add up 2 inches for ease also. I'll be connecting these 2 points with my chalk like this. And then on the hip line, I'll be coming in from the center line by my hip circumference divided by 4, which is 9.5 inches, and then add up 2 inches for ease. And then I'll also connect the line on my waist down to my hip with my curve ruler, and then take this measurement to the hem of my fabric and also add up another 2 inches for ease at the hem of the dress, and also connect the point on my hip down to the hem of my dress. And on the hem of my fabric, I don't want it to be straight but a little curvy, so I will just curve it out this way, okay, and then cut it out with my scissors. So on the neck, I will first of all start from the back. I'll cut out my back. And then when I'm done with that, I will then take out the back this way. Okay, watch what I'm doing. And then cut the front neck out like this. And that's essentially all on how to cut this beautiful dress. So in order to get this same measurement on the other side of my dress, I will just open up my fabric like this and then place it together like this so that the chalk will give it a little trace on the other side. I'm actually trying to make sure that the chalk actually give a little trace at the other side. You can see the signs, you can see the trace that it give to the other side of the fabric. But you can actually use a tracing widget that it will be very easy for you, but I don't have, so that's why I'm using this method, and it works perfectly for me. You can also do this if you want. And then still open it up and use my chalk to rewrite the measurement on the other side. This is quite easy. This is optional. So next thing to do is to go into the sewing of the dress fully. I'll first of all start from the neck. I'll be using my bias to turn my neck by half an inch. I'll be joining the right side of the bias on the right side of the fabric on my neck and sew all the way to the end. So this is it after I was done sewing. Next is to finish up my neckline. I'll be bringing in the remaining bias in. I don't want the bias to show, so I'll be bringing it in like this and then sew all the way to the end of the fabric with my machine. So this is it after I was done sewing them together. Next is to sew my fabric together. That is the front panel and the back panel together. So I'll be joining my fabric together this way and then sew on these 2 lines I made on the dress with my machine. This particular line, I'll sew on it with my machine. Okay? But I'll also be leaving 10 inches opening at the hem. I'll be coming up from the hem by 10 inches because I want it to be very free, like when I'm walking, so that it will be very free for me. Okay, so this is the final result after I was done joining the both sides using the line. So after I'm done with that, the next thing I'll be focusing on is the ruffle of the gown. I'll be making use of the inches I removed from my sleeve length, which is 20 inches in total. Then I'll now divide it by 2, okay, and then add up 1 inch for folding allowance, okay, that is 11 inches in total. That is the wideness of the ruffles. And then measure the round of my gown like this, okay. Whatever I get, I will multiply it by 2 to get the length of the ruffle, okay. So this is it after I was done cutting out the ruffle. Okay, so the next thing I'll be doing is just to fold the hem of the ruffle. I'll just be folding it so that I can be able to cover up the rough edge. Okay, and this is it after I was done sewing the rough edge. So the next thing I'll be doing is to join the ruffle to the dress. Just watch what I'm doing. I'll be joining it to my dress like this and give it a little pleating till I get to the end of the fabric with 1/2 inch with my machine. Okay, so this is the final look. This is the final result after I was done attaching the ruffle to my dress, and that's basically all on how to sew, on how to cut and sew this beautiful butterfly BUBU gown. Thank you for staying true. Please like, share, and subscribe. Bye.